Sam Pittman says the Razorback football team, they're not used to losing, and they don't want to get used to it. And I think it's a great comment from what Sam Pittman had to say in his press conference yesterday. We'll talk about that as well as the time that Sam Pittman almost took the job at Alabama as their offensive line coach while he was at Arkansas, and also get to one of your questions, which I thought was a fascinating topic here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, as now we turn the page and head to Alabama, or at least we'll head to play Alabama in Fayetteville this weekend, which is still a huge game. I know that yesterday we talked about how disappointing everything was with Razorback football and losing to Texas A&M, and it's still a disappointment, but time moves on. The game is going to get played against Alabama no matter what this weekend. So the Razorbacks got to move forward, and as do we. But we know it's a big game for all the right reasons. It's because you got two top 25 teams. In the case of an Alabama team, the number 2 team in the country, going to be facing off against each other in Fayetteville. And honestly, there hasn't been many games between Arkansas and Alabama where both teams have been ranked in the top 25, at least in Fayetteville. In fact, when I'm looking back on it, the only times that Arkansas and Alabama have ever been ranked at the same time playing in Fayetteville was in 2010 and in 2016. So this is kind of a new thing and a very unique thing. And the thing is in 2010, Arkansas actually did a really good job against Alabama, nearly won, should have won, had to lead the majority of the game, but lost it in the end. And then in 2016, Alabama was just a better team. So this might be really interesting to see how it all plays out. But Sam Pittman met with the media yesterday and had some really good comments, some comments that I felt like were important to have, especially with Razorback fans and the way that they're feeling right now and the way things are going for them right now and everything. And I want to play this clip because I think it's so great. It's just really embodies the type of coach Sam Pittman is and the type of culture that he's built at Arkansas, and talking about, losing, but also the fact that they are not used to losing. And that's why everyone was so upset. Take a listen.
The great thing about it, the sad thing is we lost. And the great thing is we're not used to it. That was only 2 losses in the last 10 games. But it hurt. We had guys that were crying, but every Saturday you put yourself in that situation, and you just try to do the best you can as a coach and as a player. But we're going to flush it out of here in the first half of our meeting, and then the second half is going to be on to Alabama, and we've got to learn from some things that we did that we have to not do. And once we get that handled, we'll move on. We don't have time. We got University of Alabama coming in here, and I'm sure we'll rebound and be excited to play.
Credit Pit Trail Nation for that clip. That was exactly what Sam Pittman needed to say in the situation that the Razorbacks find themselves in. It's a great way to start it, of saying, the sad thing is we lost, but the great thing is we're not used to it. Now, Arkansas lost games last year. They've lost games the year before. They've lost a lot of games, and they've never gone undefeated except for in 1964. Losses have happened in every single year that Arkansas football has existed. It's just the way it is. But I love how he's saying that we're not used to it, in the way of saying in that locker room after the game, there was devastation, there was sadness, there was anger, there was frustration, there was annoyances. And it wasn't because of you got embarrassed. It wasn't because of the fact that you just felt like you were completely and totally outgunned and outmatched. It wasn't because of any of that. It was because you have an expectation as a team to win, and when that expectation is not met, that's why you get the reaction that you do. And I think that that's exactly what this Razorback football team had impacted by them and why I feel like they're going to come out extremely strong against Alabama this weekend. It has nothing to do with necessarily the way that Arkansas just played against A&M because, yeah, they played bad. We all know that. We all saw the game. We all know how it all went down. But it's more about how you respond. You know, the whole adage of it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that's what Arkansas needs to do right now. They got hit, and now they got to keep moving forward. How do they respond? The toughness of this team has been extremely evident too. Not only this year, but just under Sam Pittman. We've seen come from behind victories under Sam Pittman. We've seen fourth quarter great performances in the clutch under Sam Pittman. We've seen times where you get beaten a game, but you bounce back the next week as a completely and total different team. We've seen the team finish strong at the end of the season. Like we've seen all of the evidence that we have needed to see to know that against Alabama, this Razorback football team is not going to lay down and die. Doesn't mean they're going to win for sure, but they're not going to come out there and let this A&M game impact them. They're going to allow that performance to dictate their performance against Alabama this week. And that's why, as my old sign says back over here, I'm keeping the faith. Keeping the faith that Sam Pittman's able to do what is necessary to get this team righted once again. I think that you're going to see a team that's going to come out with a plan, come out motivated, come out heated, come out angry, but come out focused and go and take care of business against Alabama and play at a very high level. I think a lot of the mistakes that you saw Arkansas make against Texas A&M will be shored up and be fixed. I think they're going to feed off of the energy that's there at Razorback Stadium and getting after it defensively, offensively, whatever it takes. I believe that that's what makes a great team, which Arkansas still, in my opinion, is a great team. They're still a team. Like, yeah, they're number 20 in the country. That's where they dropped. We talked about that yesterday. But here's the thing. If you're able to beat Alabama, if you're able to go into this weekend and beat Alabama, beat the number 2 team in the country, it erases that Texas A&M loss. Still be maybe annoying, but think about all of a sudden how things change, where now you're right back on track. You won the toughest game on your schedule, and you got 2 tough ones coming up on the road against Mississippi State and against BYU. Like, we know how difficult that schedule is going to be. But if you beat Alabama, it really cures a lot of ills. It really makes a lot of things better. Because you haven't beaten Alabama since the Bush administration, like 2006. You think about how many things have changed in that time. Like, Twitter wasn't even a thing. Facebook was barely off the ground running. Pretty sure MySpace was still a thing. Like, how different things were the last time you beat Bama. And if you're able to do it this year with this team, and especially to do it in the way of a response after losing to Texas A&M, then everything's right in the world. Everything's right. Alabama, Bryce Young, since he's been the starting quarterback, when they've gone on the road, 4 of their last 5 games in true road games have been decided by 3 points or less. Think about that. 4 of their last 5 true road games, 3 points or less is what the game's been decided by. They went on the road down to Texas and almost lost. Probably should have lost. Texas lost to Texas Tech the other day. You know, college football is a fluky thing. But for anyone to say that this Alabama team is absolutely invincible and unbeatable, it's just mistaken. Arkansas is good enough to beat Alabama. They're good enough. They're talented enough. They're well coached enough. And playing at home always helps too when it comes to the atmosphere and home field advantage. But the biggest thing about Arkansas is that they have a culture put into place to where they have an expectation for themselves, where they're not used to losing and they don't want to ever feel that again. They know how to bounce back. They know how to be clutch. They know how to make plays when it matters the most. Not to say that they always do it in the times like they did it against Texas A&M. But I will always believe that this team was be able to bounce back after something than what we saw on Saturday. And I believe this weekend against the Alabama Crimson Tide, they'll be able to bounce back once again. From cringing at the pump to getting eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts. It really hurts. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone that buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to Upside. Listen, it's kind of one of those things to where I started using this app and I was like, okay, well maybe, I'll get a few cents here and there, maybe it'll add up over time, but it's actually pretty incredible how much money I am able to earn just from the basic purchases that I'm able to do. And the app is really easy to use. It almost seemed like it was too good to be true, but folks, it works. It absolutely works. And to get started, download the free Upside app. Use promo code LOCKED, and you'll get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business. Pay as usual with a credit card or debit card, and get paid. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED with the Upside app.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pittman and Saban, two coaches that are going to be facing off in this weekend. And we all know about Saban. We all know about Alabama. And Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time. It's not close. Nobody even sniffs it. I know everyone, will bring up old school coaches. People bring up Bear Bryant. No, Nick Saban's the greatest of all time. That's not an argument. And even though that they didn't win a championship last year, which is kind of a drought for them, just 2 years ago, they had one of the best college football teams you'll ever see. Last year had some injuries, but they even in a down year, they still played in the freaking national championship game. So we all know about Nick Saban. We all know about his greatness and the way that he approaches the game. And we also know about Sam Pittman, kind of being, as far as an offensive line coach, the best in his own regard, now being a head coach. And it was kind of an interesting thing that he actually mentioned yesterday in his press conference when he was asked about the time when Sam Pittman was the offensive line coach at Arkansas when he got offered the job at Alabama, and also the relationship that he has with Nick Saban. It was a pretty fascinating comment.
I think he's fantastic. He's been so kind and so good to me. I sat right next to him in the SEC head coaches meetings, and I asked him questions, and he's been kind enough to answer them, and he's treated me outstanding, and I have nothing but wonderful things to say about him. And he's the greatest coach of all time, and in college football, in my opinion. And so, but yeah, I kind of was wondering when he's going to retire too, but I don't know when that's going to come. And the story, I had just been here about 4 or 5 weeks, and I had, talked to my players about loyalty and this, that, and other. And then, can't be hypocritical. Yeah, my mother told me she didn't raise a son that would do that. So that was the end of that conversation.
That's pretty flattering, though, wasn't it? That he came after you?
Yeah, yes. But I loved it here at the time, when I was assistant coach as well as now. But I'd given Brett my word, and had given the kids, I was their coach, and it hadn't been about 5 or 6 weeks. I can't remember. It wasn't very long. And I called my mom. She told me she didn't raise a son that would do that. I said, yes, ma'am. And that was the end of it.
So a pretty cool little clip there about how his relationship with Saban and talking to him, but also about that instance back in 2013 when he was offered the job. And I try to put myself into people's situations and thinking about how I would have handled that. Like, imagine that I'm Sam Pittman and I just got a job at Arkansas, and Arkansas is a program that Sam Pittman loved and knew a lot about. But you're walking into a program with Brett Bielema as a new coach, a team that just went 4-8, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of mystery surrounding it, and you're feeling good about it for a few weeks. But then Nick Saban calls you up, and says, hey, yeah, we just won the national championship last year because they did win it in 2012. We just won the national championship last year, and we would like to formally offer you a job as our offensive line coach to help us win more national championships, and you'll get paid a lot because at least from the reports back then that they were going to pay Sam Pittman more than what he was making at Arkansas. How many other assistant coaches would have stayed at Arkansas in that case? I think about how many coaches, and not even just at Arkansas, anywhere in general, pick a school, Ole Miss, pick Ohio State, like just all the other places that you could think about. And Nick Saban calls you up and willing to pay you more as an assistant coach to come be on his staff. I would almost bet 98% of coaches in that situation would make the jump to Alabama. No matter what they said to the kids, no matter what they said to the head coach at the school that they were currently at, no matter what, they would move on. They'd be like, hey, we appreciate it, but this is Nick Saban we're talking about, and I got to go. But not Sam Pittman. Not Sam Pittman. Talk about his mom and the way that she raised him. And you go from being a coach that could have jumped on board to a team that was going to win at least 1 or 2 national championships in the next 2 or 3 years and make a lot more money doing it and learn from the greatest college football coach of all time. But instead, he stayed at Arkansas under Brett Bielema for less money to recruit to Arkansas and to be a coach on a staff that over the next 3-year span would either go winless in the SEC or barely scrape by an over 500 record. Because Sam Pittman was only here 13, 14, and 15. And in that 3-year stretch, he went 3-9, 6-6, 7-5. He stayed there for that. And loyalty meant a lot to him. And we know that we've heard other stories about how much loyalty means to Sam Pittman, but it just continues to be cool to get that confirmation, to get that affirmation that that this coach is legitimate when it comes to how he views not only himself, but his coaching staff and his players. I'm going to be loyal to you. You be loyal to me. I'm not going to go and just jump for another big job because that's like Sam Pittman's not going to do that. He's not going to go to another job at this point in time. And I don't think he said it before, and I believe him. This is his final college football coaching job right here at Arkansas. He's not going anywhere else. As much as his name may be floated around or anything, and I always hear people, well, everybody's got a price. I don't think Sam Pittman does. I don't. If he didn't take the job under Nick Saban at Alabama coming off of a national championship to go from Arkansas to Alabama, do you think that he's going to go to Alabama? Because I'm just trying to think of a job that would open up as a head coaching position. You think he's going to go to Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, USC, Georgia? You think he'd make that jump? I don't. Now, maybe he'd consider it. Maybe he'd listen. But he's not going anywhere. He's staying right here. And it's always one of the many reasons why I root for Sam Pittman and what he's been able to do at Arkansas. He's a loyal guy. He's loyal now, and he was loyal then. Not every coach can say that. But you know who can? Our coach. Our coach can say that. Razorback fans, I hope you're game day ready because this is a big one against Alabama this upcoming weekend. Listen, it's a 2:30 kickoff, so there's going to be tailgating. There's going to be all the apparel that everybody's going to be wearing, all their Razorback hats and their accessories and their shirts and everything. Well, for all those needs that you need for this game, Alumni Hall is your ultimate shopping experience. It's the best and largest selection of all Razorback apparel for the whole family. Nike Golf, Champion, Columbia, and an amazing college vault of vintage and throwback logos, plus gifts, accessories for all of your tailgating necessities. It's what you need. And Razorback students and faculty and military, you get 10% off in store. You can also earn cash back with the Hall Pass Awards. I'm telling you, every time I go into Alumni Hall, it's incredible to see the collections that they have. I go to other places and they have, Razorback apparel and everything, but Alumni Hall, not only do they have all the selections, they have it all in stock, and they have a great staff there that's willing to help you out, where even if they don't have something, they'll make sure that they'll get it for you. It's right there in Fayetteville on College Avenue next to the Whole Foods. So a lot of you, they're going to be making that trip up to Fayetteville this weekend. You're going to say, hey, well, we need to get some apparel, or maybe we get something for the kids. The kids have grown up a little bit. Alumni Hall. That's where you need to go. Nowhere else. Go to Alumni Hall and make sure that you're game day ready. I got a lot of shirts. I got a lot of accessories myself, and I plan on this weekend going back just to see all the new stuff that they'll always have available in store. You can also visit their website at alumnihall.com. So for all your Razorback apparel needs, make sure you're game day ready. Visit the store in Fayetteville on College Avenue. We're online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Razorback fans come to shop.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I had an interesting question from a listener on the Facebook page of Buzz John Nabors, saying this is coming from Jimmy. And he says, hey, John, tomorrow's show, did the loss to A&M help Arkansas versus Alabama or hurt? Momentum would have been great, crowd going wild, but now the Hogs are mad and hate feeling the feeling of that loss. They desperately want to make it up for the fan base after catching living hell. I feel good about our chances. Hope to hear your thoughts this week on the Locked On Razorbacks. Well, first of all, Jimmy, appreciate you listening. But to answer your question, I've actually thought about this, and this is why I wanted to bring it up. I thought about this because, the old adage of, momentum and, if you lose, does that make you more motivated? I think that we could really dive into the psyche of players as individuals and as teams and how everything helps. Here's my take on it. It wouldn't have mattered, honestly. I think that the A&M game, if you won that game or if you lost that game, which you did, I think Arkansas is going to come out in the same regard, because they're going to know that what this game means, what this game is going to have an impact not only on their season, but in college football in general, and it's at home. I don't think that it really would have affected one way or the other. Now, you could look back to last year when Arkansas started 4-0, and they went on the road to play Georgia, the eventual national champions, and they got smoked. Like, not even close, just got wrecked. And some people were saying, they were feeling themselves too much. They got ranked too high, whatever. And that may have been the case, but it wasn't a pretty sight in Georgia. So maybe if that's the case, having this loss to not a great team in A&M will open your eyes a lot and open their eyes and say, okay, this is one we got to go get. We're angry. We're frustrated. We should not have lost that game. This is our time. This is our time to make up for it. This is our time to take it back. So you can look at it in a lot of different ways. I feel like no matter what, this team would have been motivated against this team, against Alabama. But, if Arkansas comes out and win, then everyone's going to be like, see, that's what they needed against against A&M. They needed to lose that game to get them there too. I always felt like, as a player, and especially in college football, as long as you're not reading your own press clippings, as they used to say, as long as you're not feeling yourself too much, as long as you're not buying into your own hype, I think that's an element that can always be detrimental to you. But this team did that last year. In a lot of these guys remember that from last year, and they're not going to let it happen again. So I think it's a learning experience. I feel like once you go through it once, you don't go through it again. So I don't know. I feel like that's a good question. It's an interesting conversation to have, but at the end of the day, I think Arkansas was going to be motivated no matter what. But now there's a little bit more of a sense of urgency on this game and a sense of bouncing back, because, again, you shouldn't have lost that game. That you lost to an inferior opponent, and now you got to go out and you got to take care of business against Alabama. It's just plain and simple. It's what's got to happen. It's what you got to do, and hopefully they end up doing it against them in Fayetteville, or at least, obviously I'd love to win. I think we all would love to win. But if they could just make it extremely difficult and competitive, I think people will feel really good about it there too. So, but hey, it's going to be a wild one in Fayetteville. There's no doubt about it. Appreciate everybody listening in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.